Welcome, everyone, to Fightful Overbooked. I'm Jeremy Lambert, joined by a cast of characters here. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves because I don't want to be yelled at for hard G's, soft G's, anything like that. We're going to start with Zach. If we can just go down the row, give a big introduction here.
Hi, I'm Zack the Snack Manko, creative director for WrestleQuest.
James.
James Deighan, founder of MegaCat, JAMES for the first name. Thank you.
And then I think everyone knows the legend, Jeff Jarrett, but I'll let you do the introduction yourself, Jeff.
Well, howdy, folks. Double J here. That's JEFF, JARRET. That's Double J, Jeff Jarrett, the world's greatest singer, the world's greatest entertainer, and the world's greatest video game player. Now, choke on that, slap nut.
There you go. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. I'm going to start with James. James, WrestleQuest, just let me know how this came together because I've been following the progress of it. I know it got delayed a little bit, but it's coming out August 8th. How did this all come together and the idea behind it? Because we've never really seen anything like this before.
The short version, and it's a little bit romantic, and it's really just demonstrates my love with Zach here. But we've been making games for a long time. And you join the games industry with this grand vision of how you want to impact the world and make things that you love, and it's really hard to do that, I'll tell you. So many years in, once we continued to kind of blue collar game studio our way up the mountain, we decided to go all out with our number one dream game, which is WrestleQuest. And after many hours, 4 years of development and 60 pounds of baby oil, a lot of chairs, we're finally getting to launch next Tuesday.
Zach, your involvement in the game and then working with James on it to put all this together.
Yeah, so again, you nailed it when you said this hasn't been really done before. The idea of a pro wrestling RPG. Most wrestling games are simulation games. They focus just on the action in the ring, whereas we really wanted to show how much story and narrative there is with wrestling in a genre that, plays that, like the JRPG. So that's really WrestleQuest is part of its secret sauce is this idea of exploring not only the stuff that happens in the ring, but everything else involved with wrestling, all the behind the scenes machinations, the betrayals that happen, on TV, but also backstage, exploring all of that in a genre that hasn't been touched by wrestling before.
And Jeff, you have been the sound effects guy, at least in the promo you guys did for this. How did you get involved? And then do you think the sound effects, you said it sounded good. Is that true? Is everything good on the sound side?
Don't look, this is professional wrestling. Don't believe everything you see. Sound effects is just one of the many hats that I can wear. But no, a couple of years ago, actually, me and James met on kind of another project, kind of gamifying a live event. I'm a third generation wrestling promoter, and our relationship, kind of took off. And like about every relationship in my life, it always centers back to being a wrestling fan first. And as the WrestleQuest project was in obviously in much earlier stages than it is now, we just kind of kept feeding off each other, and we came to an agreement, and I came on board, and here we are days away from launching. But from the very, very beginning, the fan first mentality, the marketing line that is, I don't even call it a marketing line anymore because it really sums up everything that WrestleQuest is. It's a love letter to professional wrestling of 80s and the 90s. That just, to me, checks all the boxes, nail on the head mentality. But the authenticity of the team, of the game, of everything about it. And that's something that in my history of the business, whether it's my grandmother, my father, and now my generation is, look, we're obviously not true sport in my day job of professional wrestling, but the emotional connection has to be a real emotional connection. And I was emotionally connected to the WrestleQuest project from the very beginning.
James, you mentioned the overall depth of this is like, you're going to kind of get the backstabbing. You're going to get the stuff, maybe some behind the scenes stuff, the turns and everything. Like, who did you talk to in kind of consulting with that? And then the decision to really just put all that on there. And I know one of the things is like reacting to the crowd. Like, you're not just button mashing basically to do the turns. You got to listen to kind of how the crowd is like, who did you kind of talk to consult with that to really put this level of depth in there?
There's so many layers to that answer, right? It's like there's the wrestling lens with Jeff being our executive wrestling producer, and being serious now, like Jeff has been so consistent with making sure that everything that we're capturing is authentic. And then we have on the game side, we've been making games for a long time, like 8 years of MegaCat, and for some of our team members, 20 years before that. We have a lot of folks and friends and colleagues in the games industry. We share details, challenges, issues, game design opportunities, and there's a lot of value that comes with bouncing ideas off of other folks who've been there before. And then, most importantly, on the fan side, we've done so many focus groups, trade shows, rundowns, like every size and type at this point, to kind of turn the bolts tighter and to truly WrestleFi the games industry with WrestleQuest.
Zach, I know it's very much kind of based Japanese style RPG, and you have your different characters and stuff. What was the decision of like, okay, this character is going to represent kind of this style? I know the Japanese, like, okay, you have like the thief, I think there's like the wizard. But in wrestling, obviously, you're not doing that. There are certain like characters in wrestling, but different styles when it came to that. So what was the decision-making process? And like, all right, we're going to have this wrestler who is maybe a submission guy. This is going to be your brawling guy. Like, how did you make those decisions?
So from the ground up, we wanted WrestleQuest to appeal to both wrestling fans and RPG fans. So whether you're a fan of both or just one or the other, there's something there's something here for you. And we designed it so that we don't leave you out in the cold. So if you're not familiar with those, this sort of like JRPG classes, that's okay, because the way they're introduced is through this wrestling lens. So for example, to your point about the different styles of wrestling, there's different subclasses you can apply to any unit, like the technician guy or the powerhouse or the high flyer. And if you're a fan of wrestling, you're already familiar with those terms. So you kind of know what goes into them. And if you're a JRPG player, then you're familiar with the concept of classes, and you can start to pick apart how those trail back to things that you're more familiar with, these more traditional thief, wizard kind of archetypes. So again, wrestling has allowed us to WrestleFi RPGs to make it something exciting and new and unique and fresh, but still familiar to you no matter what side of the aisle you're on.
Jeff, your character model in this, from what we saw on the trailer, is the JEFF character model. Whose decision? You've worn a lot of different outfits. You've had a lot of different looks over the years. What was the decision to go with that character model?
The 90s era. I mean, when you would, and also when I broke in '86, and in '92, '93 is when I launched back in the day at that time it was called the WWF. So it just, again, staying authentic to the game, the 90s character. You could go late 90s, but that Double J character, larger than life, the guitar, it just kind of fit with all the other characters in there. In a lot of ways, it was a no-brainer.
James, when it came to deciding to put the game together and then releasing the game, it's obviously a pretty hot period of time in wrestling. Pretty hot period of time when it comes to wrestling games. WWE game coming out, AEW game coming out. What was the decision of like, this is the time to release this game?
Yeah, I wish I could say 4 years ago we were looking into the crystal ball. It was really more about we decided to jump off the cliff because we wanted to make the game that we would be known for. So let's hope someone plays it, right? But so far so good.
I'm looking forward to it because I've never seen. I'm a fan of like the RPG. I got kids and they love the RPG style thing, and they're through me, they follow wrestling and stuff. So I'm looking forward to trying to push this on them as well. So yes, I'm very much looking forward to that. When it came to
what is let me ask you, I want to jump in. What is the one thing you're looking forward to most? Because it sounds like kids and the gaming kind of background that I'm hearing, but also the wrestling side. What is the one thing?
I'm looking forward to really the overall experience, because I do love wrestling games. I've played the AEW game. I played the WWE game. What I love about those games is the actual story aspect of it. Like, I like playing the Road to the Elite in AEW. I like doing the GM mode in WWE. So just the overall, this is legitimate. I'm a big Pokemon fan. I grew up playing, Pokemon on the Game Boy, and I love just going through all the quests and stuff. So this game is legitimately up my alley of like my love of pro wrestling, and then my love of like story kind of based games with this. So it's legitimately up my alley.
Oh, we can end the interview. We've got your quotes. Talk at you later.
Can I get a quote on the back of the box or anything like that? Jeremy Lambert, Fightful. This game is legitimately up my alley.
Now we're talking.
James, when it came to deciding, and Zach as well, when it came to deciding which wrestlers to put in and working with wrestlers, what went into that decision-making process?
Man, that's a complex one. So I guess it was there's a few different lenses to look through. There's like what is possible, both to make sure that we have a cohesive era and style that fits the story and the universe we're building, that isn't in conflict with major outlets like WWE and AEW, and then who best fits and deserves like the treatment that we gave in WrestleQuest. Like the way we use the legends isn't, you don't play as Jeff Jarrett. There's like cities built in his honor with Statue of Liberty size statues that wrestlers go to ask for advice. It's different, right? So you can't do that to everybody. They have to be talent that have had a major impact in the industry, and they have to be able to sit alongside one another and be able to hold that, right? So it's definitely an interesting challenge, and it was some of the most fun and some of the more challenging parts of WrestleQuest. So I'm glad that's behind us, and we're working on the sequel.
Oh, already working on a sequel on this.
Of course.
It's really all Zach wants to do these days. We talked about rebranding to WrestleCat Studios. It's hard to know. We're gonna make it soon.
There's so much material on the cutting room floor that we definitely have enough for another WrestleQuest.
I was gonna say, you do the behind the scenes stuff, you do the stuff in front of the camera. You're working with Jeff, who has decades and decades of experience here. I'm sure there are just a lot of stories that you could probably tell. And the world of wrestling, of course, never slows down. There's stories every single week on this. So okay, so to kind of piggyback off of that, how did you decide what was going to be actually in this one? Like, how tough was that decision-making process of like, oh, we might have to leave this one out to tell a more kind of cohesive story with just this version?
Yeah, I mean, that cutting room floor is full of characters that we loved, that we wanted to do something with, but we had to make sure we were building the right WrestleQuest cornerstone that fit what players are going to love, and then both the wrestling lens and the gaming JRPG lens, because you can play WrestleQuest, each can stand alone and introduce one to the other, vice versa.
And Zach, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was really, again, about making this a game that can appeal to both audiences. And we wanted to have all the Easter eggs and references that if you're a hardcore wrestling fan, when you see them, you'll pop, you'll be delighted. But then also make it, if you've never touched wrestling but you love RPGs, that it's all that epic scale and the scope of content, the number of characters, all of that's still there for you.
That game comes out August 8th. It's going to be a big hit. We're just going to go ahead and manifest that. Thousands, millions of players and everything. Plans for whether it be kind of add-on packs, DLC, anything like that?
I can't wait to tell everyone about the DLC we're working on. It's one of the coolest things we've ever been part of. And I'm planning on getting some tattoos and shaving my chest hair to match what we're going to bring to life. That's the only clue I can give you, but it's going to be method development based. Like, I'm going to become the character. We're going to make it go. I can't wait to share it with everybody.
Jeff, Conrad Thompson is in this game.
Podfather.
Was that your call? Did you try to keep him out of the game because he's already everywhere? It's like, does Conrad really need to be in this as well?
Of course he does, but no, all kidding aside, and I love you're having fun with it because I love to have fun with it, but no, I was all for it. The Mega Cat team, when I tell you really diving into, I mean, the DNA of the DNA, I mean, Dave Meltzer, Conrad Thompson, gosh, I could just go on and on the list, but just kind of the real depth of where we're at today in 2023 and beyond is that, in the conversation, Conrad, his entire network, and I'm one of however many, it's really sometimes his content might not be a love letter, but it is a letter to 80s and 90s wrestling. When you hear his podcast, not just mine, across the board, there is so much 80s and 90s content. I really believe, and I'm saying this as one of my business partners, how could you not have him in if you're going to stay authentic to today's world? And, I think that goes across the board when Sergeant Slaughter, we were out at San Diego Comic-Con, and when you really hear Sarge's story all the way through, it's just like, I mean, it's amazing how the stars really have aligned. You said that, James, 4 years ago when they jumped off the cliff, and there's no way, no how you could have, we've gone through a pandemic, we've gone through. I'm not going to get into all the ups and downs of the wrestling industry, but we're days away from Wembley Stadium setting a record, making history. So when you talk about, and I think when we look back on August of 2023, we're going to go back and, hey, there's Wembley and there's this. And oh, guess what? That's when the WrestleQuest franchise was first launched. That's kind of the lens that we're all looking through because of just the momentum the game has built. Again, the excitement that I hear in your voice and others' voices that have, seen the game or heard the game or the buzz a couple of years ago at PAX East and at PAX West, just the excitement. Now here we are 18 months, 24 months later, we're jumping off truly Tuesday, August 8th. There's such a buzz, and that's really what wrestling's about. The big event, the big buzz. I cannot wait to see how it transpires. That's where we're at.
The 80s and 90s theme, which I grew up watching 90s wrestling. I was born in 88. James and Zach, I'm going to assume you're both 80s and 90s fans. Who are some of your favorites growing up, and now getting to work with somebody like Jeff, getting to implement people like Randy Savage, Andre the Giant, Jake the Snake Roberts in this? Who did you guys kind of grow up being inspired by? James, I'll let you start.
I'm glad. I was going to interrupt because Jeff always does this, where they ask who my favorite wrestler is, and I say it's Jeff Jarrett 3 times for my top three.
I was going to say besides Jeff Jarrett. You got to give me an answer besides.
All the time, dude.
You should have.
It's heel macho, face macho, and then commitment macho when he got married in the ring.
Answer. I like that. Yes. How about you, Zach?
So my older brother's name is Jake. So I've heard Jake the Snake all my life, even before I knew who Jake the Snake was, when I was just a wee chap. And now, after making WrestleQuest and diving into these characters, what I really like, again, is to, like, when you're writing as them, watching old promos and footage to kind of get in character for them. So just seeing the difference in how these characters present themselves on the mic is astounding. You have Macho Man who it has all this dynamic ups and lows, talking quiet, talking loud, and the speed that he talks. You have the Ultimate Warrior who has this sort of like elevated diction and this like talking about his warrior heritage. Then you got like Jake the Snake, who's like slower and quieter and like sinister in a way. Just the art form of that and how it ties back into their overall persona is amazing. And each one's unique and fun to watch, and also, from a creative standpoint, from a writing standpoint, like really interesting to get into.
Well, when you mentioned this promo stuff, that's very fascinating to me, because I love going back and watching old promos and everything. What was a promo that you went back and you watched and you kind of wanted to really kind of capture and put in the game? I don't know if you can spoil anything, but just going back and watching those, like, what kind of stuck out to you as far as like a very memorable line or promo?
So Macho Man is the pillar of the game. He inspires the game's core protagonist to enter wrestling. So I think when you're talking Macho Man promos, the ones with leading up to the Mega Powers exploding are really strong. But I think that's just too much heel macho energy. I think talking about the cream of the crop, I think that line alone, and that from that promo transcends wrestling alone. So I definitely put that, if we're talking promos, I'd put that on the Mount Rushmore of promos for sure.
I know we have to run. I appreciate you guys so much for doing this, for promoting WrestleQuest. It comes out August 8th. Jeff, I'm going to let you do the hard sell on this, because I know, as the wrestler, as Jeff Jarrett, as the greatest of all time, I know you know how to sell things. Give us the hard sell for WrestleQuest.
I'm not going to, that's not my style, but I'll say this. Don't miss out. Don't be caught sleeping, because August 8th is going to be a historical day, the day that WrestleQuest launches. Don't be left in the dust.
You know what a better question would have been? Tell us why WrestleQuest is great. You are great, Jeff Jarrett. WrestleQuest is going to be great.
We don't have enough time, but I will say this. the authenticity, every wrestling fan, kind of the worst thing that you can almost hear is, don't tell me you don't really watch that, do you? You don't really like professional wrestling. That's, you can relate, right?
I've heard it
I-
before.
Yeah, of course we all have. We're all wrestling fans here. That's the one thing when you get your hands on this game, people are they're gonna gleam like, oh, you've played WrestleQuest before. You're going to immediately connect. It's one of those things that as a gamer, you're going to be in the club. Don't be left out of the club, not being able to touch, taste, play, feel. You want to be a part of the WrestleQuest family, because if not, what's the kids saying now? FMOH, fear of missing, whatever it is, FMO,
FOMO,
whatever.
yeah.
FOMO. Telling you, that's real when it comes to WrestleQuest.
I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. Thank you guys. WrestleQuest available August 8th. PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, PC. Everyone go out there. Go check it out. Thank you guys so much for doing this today.
Thanks for your time, man.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate it, man.